Welcome to the sixth session of the chapter Control and Coordination. In this module, we will be discussing about reflex action and reflex arc. We would have experienced touching a hot and a cold object. Is the experience same? How would we have reacted to the two situations? Would our body give the same response? Never. We would have pulled off our hand from the hot object in a fraction of seconds. There would be no time lapse between the perception of heat and pulling off of our hand. Same way, when we got our leg pricked by a nail or a pin, our immediate response is to jump up. Why is it so? Why is it not taking much time to respond? The answer is because to save us from emergency situations, our nervous system responds by taking a shortcut. And this shortcut is called as a reflex action. It can be defined as a sudden, spontaneous, automatic, involuntary response to the stimuli without the will of the organism. You are not giving the permission for your body to take off your hand from the hot object. It is being done in a very spontaneous, automatic, involuntary, without your will, without your decision. And that response to stimuli. What is the stimuli over here? Touching the hot object. What is the response? Pulling off the hand from the hot object. And this immediate response which is given to this stimuli is called as a reflex action. The concept of reflex action was discovered by Sir Marshall Hall in 1833, and the involvement is very quick because only the spinal cord of the central nervous system is involved in reflex action, and it gives very quick response as the receptors and effectors are in direct contact with each other in the spinal cord. We know receptors. What are they? They are specialized neurons which detects a stimuli, and they are present in the sense organs. So any change in the environment, any stimuli which is given from the environment is detected and received by the receptors, which are specialized in neuron tips, which is present in the sense organs. And from there it is carried to the central nervous system where the processing has to happen. And the information after processing is given to the effector. What is an effector? It is a gland or a muscle which gives an immediate response. And in the spinal cord, the receptors and the effectors, they are in direct contact with each other, and that is the importance of spinal cord in reflex action. It acts as an impulse even before it reaches the brain. That means the processing in the brain is not taking place. An immediate response is given by the involvement of only the spinal cord, and the spinal cord sends back signals to the muscle through the motor neuron. From the receptor, which neuron carries the information or the message to the spinal cord, we know it is a sensory neuron. Whereas a motor neuron, it carries the immediate signal to take off the hand to the muscles of the hand through the motor neuron. And the muscles attached to the sense organ move the organ away from the danger. Okay, the hand is withdrawn from the hot object, or the leg is taken off from the pricky object, and that thus it saves us from danger. Reflex action examples: immediate pulling back of fingers after touching a hot plate, closing our eyes when flashed with high intensity light. What do we do when a high intensity light is flashed onto our eyes? We immediately close our eyes. That is, our lens contract in response to this high intensity light. And the thought of a food, a favorite food, when we are hungry, we start to water our mouth. It is because of reflex action which is taking place in our body. The pathway of reflex action is called as reflex arc. How the information is flowing in a reflex action, this pathway of nerve is called as a reflex arc. It involves the receptors, as I had already informed, which receives the message from the external environment. Next is the sensory neuron, which carries a message from the receptor to the central nervous system. And the central nervous system, which part of the central nervous system? I told you it is the spinal cord which receives the information and gives out a response. And this response is carried from the central nervous system to the effector. And the effector is nothing but a gland or a muscle which responds against the stimuli and saves the person from danger. This is a picture of a reflex arc, the pathway of neurons in or nerves in the case of a reflex action. See, touching of the object, hot object, it is sensed by the receptors in the skin. Receptors receive the stimuli. Here the stimuli is the hot object. From here it is scanned by the sensory neuron. The sensory neuron carries the message from the receptor to the central nervous system. Which part of the central nervous system? The spinal cord, because in the spinal cord the sensory neuron and the motor neuron is in close contact with each other. It is a junction where they meet each other. So here the processing takes place, and there's a relay neuron. The relay neuron, or it is always called as interneuron. Interneuron or relay neuron connects the sensory neuron to the motor neuron, and the motor neuron carries the processed information from the spinal cord to the effector, that is a muscle cell, and immediately we pull off a hand from the hot object in response to the stimuli. That is, the spinal cord gives a very quick response. But even though the message goes to the brain to be stored, why? So that in future this instinct of a hot object placed on a gas stove, immediately what do? We hesitate to touch it. It is because of the message which has been stored in the brain due to the experience that we have undergone. And this experience has been stored in the brain, and it gives a very fast response the next time, or we are more cautious the next time. In this module, we have discussed about reflex action and the pathway of reflex action called as reflex arc.